Okay, we're back. We're going to do a quick video here on some pretty special cards that I've accumulated of my favorite team, the Cardinals. These are all old vintage cards that that are not tops. They're actually released by the Canadian company O-Pee-Chee. It's basically they replicated everything excuse me, Tops did, with few exceptions. There's some bilingual stuff on the back and it says printed in Canada, but anyway, they're very rare cards. And just to show you, there's the 69 Gibson. And as you'll see, there's the O-Pee-Chee logo there, and there's the printed in Canada right there. So it's got a little bit darker back, and at least the 69 does. And it's just very cool and very rare. It was the only one I found on eBay, so it's very cool. Here's another one from '69 where Gibson sets the strikeout record in the World Series. Again, as you can see, the darker print, and at the bottom, as you can see, it says printed in Canada. Here's the 68 Gibson we all know, and now here's the back. Now the back of the 68 is much more dull than the yellow of the 68 made by Tops, but at the bottom, as you'll see, printed in Canada. And this is the O-Pee-Chee version. Here's an interesting one too. The second series checklist that Gibson appeared on. This is pretty wild looking. O-Pee-Chee baseball. So used to it saying Tops seems so weird, and of course it's some kid at the time filled in the checklist so it'd give a little charm and date to the card, where people were actually using the checklist for what I guess they assumed it would intend to be used for, is to check them off as you get them. And of course there's the printed in Canada. As you can see, the darker color. Here's the 1970 Gibson. Looks the same as the Tops, and then you flip it over and it's a little bit lighter, and then you start seeing some bilingual information there on the back. And of course the printed in Canada. Again, a rare card. Very cool. This is going to be even different. So there's a 71. Of course the front looks exactly the same as the Tops, but now the back. The back on the Tops were green, and this is yellow. So that's even more cool. So you got the big picture in the middle. You got some bilingual information over there. Again, over there. Down here. All over. And of course it says printed in Canada. So I love that back. Love the 71 O-Pee-Chee back. Here's the 71 pitching leaders. Of course, looks the same on the front and on the back. Everything, again, it's got that, it's not green, it's yellowish, and it's got some bilingual writing at the top, and of course it says printed in Canada. So it's just a unique variation to the Tops that most everyone knows about. There's the 72 Gibson. It's going to be a little bit harder to read, but there's your printed in Canada. There's some bilingual information there. There's some bilingual information there. Not sure if that... Anyway, about the same color on the back as the regular 72 tops. But anyway, here's the 73 Gibson. Same as the front. Now the back, to me, the main, aside from having a little bit of French on the back and the printed in Canada, the back on the tops wasn't as sharp and detailed. The black is much more prominent, and this looks actually a lot better than the tops, even though it's almost identical. Here's your 75 Gibson. Looks the same as the tops. And again, aside from a little bit of French, this one again looks, the print looks much more prominent, much darker, and much easier to read. So anyway, that's all the Gibsons. Here comes another really great one, the 69 Brock, which is a very valuable card. Of course, there's a front, and I've shown you the back. Of course, there's the O-Pee-Chee label, which I love. And like I said, mostly it's a darker red, a little bit of French, the printed in Canada. But either way, it's a really neat card. There's the 70 Brock. There's the back, which includes, you know, a little bio, and then they repeat it in French. Same thing with here about his World Series accomplishments, and they put it in French below there. There's some French there. Printed in Canada, or some more French there. Yeah, so it's, again, it's a pretty, I think the print is definitely, overall, you can say it's darker and easier to read than the tops. There's the 72 Brock. Same thing as before, a little red, a little French. Just something cool, something different that most people haven't seen before, especially on the older ones, the vintage one, the 60s and the early 70s. That's a 77 Brock, so this is going to be a newer one. Now this is going to be the same kind of what we've been talking about earlier, where the printing on the back is much easier to read, much darker. Of course, the printed in Canada is much more prominent, but I like the backs of the O-Pee-Chee. They're nice. They're easy. Like I said, they're much easier to read. Here's the 78 Brock. And here's the back. 78s are easier to read as well. Better print. Darkness is better. Of course, there's some cool French all throughout it. I really like that. I like the O-Pee-Chee. Okay, we're going to go back and do a couple older ones again. This is Brock, but he's got Flood with him, the Cardinal Clubbers card. most people know from the 67 set. This is also a O-Pee-Chee card, but what's interesting about this is you would never know. It could slip by a lot of people because there's nothing different. There's nothing different here. The only difference is right down there, Topps Chewing Gum, printed in Canada. So there is no difference, with the exception of printed in Canada. There's the 68 Flood. Again, here's the 68, like I showed you on the Gibson. It's a very dull yellow or gold, where the Topps is much more bright. Now, this is the one year where the printing isn't easier to see. And again, I'm looking around, and there's no French again. The only thing that says Topps Chewing Gum in Canada. So the 68 isn't much different than the regular Topps either. Okay, here's a 73 red Shane East. Quality of the card is pretty good too. And this is something I showed you on the Gibson 73. There's some French. Up there, coaches, instructors, and O-Pee-Chee, printed in Canada. Here's 65 Topps. A highlight from Game 4 of the World Series with Ken Boyer hitting a grand slam against the Yankees. And this is also an O-Pee-Chee card. Looking at this back here, the only indication that this is O-Pee-Chee is right there, printed in Canada. Other than that, it's the exact same as the Topps. Here's a 77 Keith Hernandez. And this actually, the photo, although the same, this is a more zoomed in photo. The other picture, his head is much further away from the picture, so that's interesting. If you look at your 77 Keith Hernandez, that is definitely a zoomed in shot. And there's the back, which we've seen it on the Brock. Same thing, pretty easy to read. Some French on there, and nice looking back. And the only other one I got is of no significance really is Pete Falcone, and that's actually a different picture than the original 77 Falcone that's on Topps. There's your back. Same thing as the others. So anyway, that completes the Cardinals O-Pee-Chee cards. Hope you enjoyed it. Like it. If you enjoyed what you saw, subscribe to the channel. Make any comments. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want me to feature anything else, look at my other videos. There's many years, going from the early 50s all the way up to 1980. I'm not going to go past 1980. If there's anything you want me to feature or talk about on one of the videos, let me know. Thanks for watching.